Hi, welcome back to another video. In this episode we're going to cover chapter 3 of the book and let's see what it has in store for us. G just gave another explanation as to why his statements may be contradictory. We already talked about that in the previous chapter. And it is because Ouspensky described that G told his knowledge not all at once, but gave it in slowly. First only a general idea, and later on the essential parts. And because he gives only the general idea at first, it might be contradictory, as there is information missing which can reconcile the different pieces. Furthermore, they started in this chapter talking about multiple personalities again in a person, and G said that almost everyone has multiple personalities in them, and that's the reason for why people appear inconsistent. They, so to say, hijack the consciousness over certain periods. Let's say one person has 5 different personalities in them, and they constantly wrestle for, or not constantly, but they all get the turn sometimes, and if they are in control, they are allowed to act their wishes, while the other ones are dormant and cannot influence the actions. I'm just wondering now why, if this concept of multiple personalities gives us any advantage compared to the more common view of being inconsistent. I mean, the difference between the two views is, with the multiple personality view, a person might, so we are now the outside observer and observe this person saying, I want to achieve such and such, I want to always tell the truth, for example, always be truthful. So, and the next day we observe this person telling a lie. So with the multiple personality view, it is explained by that the person who committed to this goal of telling the truth, being truthful, is a different person than the one telling the lie the next day. But I don't yet see any advantage of this view compared to just saying he forgot to, or compared to saying the next day urges which were stronger than his promise yesterday. But let's continue reading on and see what the advantages are of this view. I mean, one advantage of this view can be that it's easier to forgive someone because you know that the person who promised you something is not the same which betrayed you. So yeah, this can be one advantage, that it's easier to forgive, but forgiving is always easier when you understand the situation of the one who you want to forgive. So also with the other view, as long as you understand why someone made a mistake or acted rude towards you, it's easy to forgive them. Because you know there just came a very important consideration up. I was just wondering whether, firstly, Ouspensky understood actually what G told him and has actually accurately reproduced it in this book. I mean, I'm sure there are at least some errors in his recollection of what he learned, so the book is for sure not 100% accurate. Also, this is an English translation. I'm not sure about this, if he wrote it in Russian or in English directly, but if it's a translation, that's also always another layer of change, which the teaching has gone through. So yeah, when something makes no sense for me, it can also very well be because he didn't understand it correctly. So all I can do now is basically keep an open mind, absorb as much information as I can, not come to premature conclusions, and maybe I will know more in the end. Also, it would be good to make research on both Ouspensky and G to understand their background better, their workings, what they did, what they achieved. Will help me to put the text also in context. I just had an idea. there are two types of learning. One is specialization, and the other thing is broadening the horizon. So specialization learning occurs when you read something or hear something and it makes perfectly sense to you, so you accept it. So basically it's a specialization of the framework you already possess. You just build on top of your already existing view. So if you already have a very broad understanding, much more will make sense to you, and you have naturally just specialization learning. And broadening the horizon learning, for lack of a better term now, occurs when you read or hear something or see something which doesn't make sense in relation to your current worldview. Usually people will feel a strong resistance and reject the idea immediately or attack it vigorously. If they hear someone speak anything which doesn't make sense to them, usually the first reaction is to dismiss it or attack their standpoint. But when you choose to build up a separate worldview or a separate construct for which this idea which doesn't fit makes sense, then you have broadened the horizon. So ideally you can hold several conflicting worldviews in your mind until you find a way to combine them. Yeah, that's just a quick thought which came to my head. G just talked about a very interesting concept. He talked on evolution of humanity and of individuals. He says that first of all we have to define what evolution means, and evolution he describes as development of those functions in an individual which would not have developed naturally or mechanically. So mechanically means when we are only in the first body, in the physical body, and acting and reacting to the environment and impulses instead of having our own will. Refer to chapter 2 for the description of the 4-body model. Okay, so now we have defined evolution. Then he said evolution is only possible in accordance with nature and specifically in accordance with evolution of the planets, the moon and the sun. He says that humanity can only evolve together with the planets, with Earth, with the moon and with the sun. But since our lifespans are comparatively minuscule, it appears to us, or no, it doesn't just appear to us, but we are severely limited in evolving as human species. Then he said humanity doesn't see it as necessary. No, not humanity. I mean, the universe, so the planets and the moon and the Earth don't see it as necessary that humanity evolves quickly. They let us evolve in exactly the way, or they want us to evolve in exactly the way we are evolving. So they let us evolve satisfying their needs and requirements at the moment. But so if large masses of humanity would suddenly evolve, become extremely intelligent, for example, this would be very disruptive for the universe because it doesn't fit their requirements. He stated that the moon currently feeds on intelligent life as sustenance, but if it would become too intelligent, the moon, he or she could not, so to say, digest it well, and thus it would be fatal, even fatal for the moon. So humanity, so the universe can't allow that to happen. But for a small amount of people, it is possible still to evolve further and faster in their own lifetime by going against nature, actually. By, he said, tricking nature. But it's only possible, so if it only happens to few people, then the universe, so to say, will be accepting of that because it can be easily counterbalanced. Yeah, I found that idea very interesting. Another thing which came to my mind was, if the moon can only feed on certain kind of intelligence, what about us, the humans? For example, we eat plants, but we also eat animals of various intelligence. So let's say insects are less intelligent than a chicken is less intelligent than a cow, I believe. Of course, we don't eat humans, but they would even be more intelligent. So my question is, do we also have a harder time to digest more intelligent life forms? Are the vegans or vegetarians, do they have a point after all? Yeah, I will keep an eye on that one. I mean, the moon doesn't feed on us by swallowing our flesh, so it must be in another way. Maybe the moon feeds on us by maybe on our emotions and thoughts. I don't know, but definitely not on the human flesh, because I've never seen the moon coming down and or pulling up humans to him. So yeah, it must be some other kind of energy transmission, which only an intelligent being as intelligent as the moon can make use of. What's just came to my mind is if the moon or if the moon is really so intelligent, well, the moon doesn't appear intelligent because it just sits there or spins around the earth, but from afar it just looks like a big stone which doesn't have much going on there. When we compare that to humans, which are extremely diverse and speak and write and do all different kinds of things, compared to the moon, which is just the stone floating around in so I currently have a hard time understanding how it can be that it's more intelligent than us. But on the other hand, it's certainly more powerful than us. Or even the Earth. Well, the Earth created us. Not the Earth, but actually the Sun created us. So the Sun is also just a round ball of plasma or whatever, but it was able to create us and all this life on the planet, and it is able to hold all our planets in the galaxy together, they all depend on the sun, and also just because we don't, I mean, our view is also limited, and just because we don't see, for example, the communication going on between planets doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But yeah, I'm that's a bit my it, I believe, yeah, I have a hard time believing that it's intelligent, but when I look at their power and that they create us and give life to us, then it's not so hard actually anymore to believe. And also, complexity might not be an indicator for intelligence, just because we as humans appear to be very complex. Doesn't mean it makes us more intelligent than something more simple. Maybe the moon didn't have an necessity to develop more complexity. Maybe it would be stupid for the moon to become more complex in appearance. But I will liken it to a mayfly contemplating or comparing itself to human existence. The mayfly, let's say, only lives for a few hours and has very limited capacity to perceive. When the mayfly perceives a human with its limited senses, the human to the mayfly will more than likely appear as a big just a big form, also with not much depth to it. And because it has such limited, its visual senses and cognitive capabilities are so limited, it will most likely perceive us as just a big object standing there. And because it lives only a few hours, it has no time to view us in our entirety and understand us in our entirety. Its lifespan is hopelessly too short to understand anything about us. And yeah, so that's probably the same when we look at the moon, when the humans look at the moon. And so we too have limited senses and capacity to perceive the depth that is going on in this being, and also our lifespan is minuscule compared to that of the moon. She said nature doesn't want us to evolve. So evolving means going against nature. That's why it's difficult to evolve, because it's a struggle to go against nature. Here it's important to refer back to our definition of evolution, which was developing functions which would not have developed normally. So of course every human evolves naturally. Every human learns to walk, talk, work, learn skills, all of that. But learns only what is naturally for him. If one wants to evolve beyond what is natural for him, he must go against nature, and that is a struggle. Finally, they talked about two things. In the first one, they talked about hypnosis because Ouspensky showed a photograph to G where you can see a fakir lying on a bed of pins. So sharp iron pins, and he lies on this bed flat without getting pierced or scratched by the pins. And he asked G what he thinks about it, and G gave the explanation that this is no ordinary fakir. Or another important thing is that Ouspensky mentioned that this fakir had a motionless expression on his face, like I have now, let's say, and this indicated to G that this is no ordinary fakir, and I mean not this alone, but it was one contribution. But this fakir was an experiment, was experimented on, so he went under prolonged hypnosis, which made his skin withstand those needles, those metal pins. He spoke of was it auto-suggestion? Wait, let me look it up quickly. Post-hypnotic suggestion. So what that means is when he hears a certain trigger word, he falls under hypnosis in a deep state of trance again, and he gets a strong urge to perform the task, in this case laying on the bed of needles. Yeah, and that also explains his expressionless face when he's in the trance. And the second thing they talked about has something to do with the spiritual, with the astral body again. Ouspensky once went to Sri Lanka, which was then called Ceylon, British Zealand, so it's beneath India, and there he's went to a shrine. It's called a stupa. No, yeah, stupa, or and there he saw a piece of bone, and he asked G what he knew of that, and G said this is a piece of a bone necklace which is worn beneath the skin on the back side of your neck, so beneath the skin, under your skin, and it connects the physical body to the astral body. If for a person who possesses one, and when this physical person dies physically, the physical body dies, the astral body lives on, and through this necklace, whoever possesses it or a piece of it can get in communion, can get in communication with the astral body, which it was linked to. I don't know what to make of this, but I will just consider it for the moment. Yeah, so that's it for chapter 3. And see you next time in chapter 4.